Hey guys. Why is this backwards? All right. Hey guys, how you doing? Thank you for joining me this evening. I'm not going to lie, I'm not 100% ready for this. I was hoping to have my website up and running for this, but I will not be able to. Let me know if the sound is okay. If you've got a pin in like the past half hour or so, it's not going to be reflected on the map yet. So I'll update this every few days, but if it just came through, I don't have anything up here yet for it. All right. Yeah, I get the, let me see about this light here. Why is this? All right, looks like we got a pretty good crowd in here. All right, so this is the map that some of y'all have been participating in. So I do also have a European map. I'll show it in a little bit, but this is what we have up to this point. So you can see pretty good patterns here with some of the ones you've been choosing. Yeah, if your pin should be on here. If it's been, again, within the past, if it's been at least an hour or so. I just finished up doing this about an hour ago. All right, so we got North Carolina, we got Virginia. No love for Mississippi. There's no Mississippi on here. It's one of the few states that has none. Let me. Yeah, Louisiana has a couple. Mississippi has none so far. Yeah, a lot of snow in North Carolina. It snowed here a few times too. It's probably snowed 3 times this year so far. When I first moved to Tennessee, people were like, "Oh, it never snows here," and it snows like a few times every year. No, Puerto Rico does not have any as well. Got a lot of folks. No, there's no East St. Louis. It's just regular old St. Louis. Yeah, I don't think there are any prank ones. There are a couple I've gotten where I'm like, really? Are you sure about that? But as far as like an actual prank one, I was originally going to do this just without any kind of fundraising kind of thing. But if I would have just done that where people just pick somewhere, I'd have all kinds of weird, random stuff. But if it's if you're going to pay for it, it's going to probably weed out some of the riffraff, I think, a little bit. All right, so we've got about 800 or so pins on the map. This one probably has about 750, and then there are a handful of ones on the European map that I'll show in a little bit. But I do have a lot of the statistics. I was really, really hoping to be able to have you guys look at it along with me, but all right, so I'm going to start looking over here at the chat finally. Start actually paying attention. In terms of now, the parameters of this have been, it's up to you. Some folks have done ones where, I'd like to live in San Diego, but I can't afford it. It's really expensive, but I'd like to live there. And some folks would have done ones where it's within their budget, or some with just a dream situation. So the parameters are up to you. So some of these are going to be places that people would like to live, but maybe aren't able to for whatever reason. And some are more realistic. Yeah, Andrew, get a cult going. I mean, I was kidding, of course, with that start a cult or move a cult there, but sort of. There are towns where it's just empty. If you really wanted to take over a town, you could just move some people over there and just get the people you want for city council and mayor, and just kind of run the place into the ground. So I'm going to answer a few general questions, and I'll go specifically onto the map here. The upstate South Carolina one, I don't think it was the city of Greenville. It might have, let me see, it might have been Greenville, but it might have been just a small town outside of it. No, it was Greenville. So yeah, both Portland, Maine and Oregon are very popular. Portland, Oregon has 11 pins. Portland, Maine has 8. So those are two pretty popular spots. Chicago has quite a few. Yeah, a lot in Colorado. So I'm going to just kind of go over some of the basic stats here. In terms of the type, like each person has been put into a category. So for most people want to live, according to this map, the people that participated want to live somewhere different than where they currently live. So those are the most popular responses. There are not many folks that live where they're that live where they're from and want to stay there. And there are not many folks that don't live where they're from and want to move back home. So wanting to move back home is not the top category for here. So yeah, right now California has the most with 77, but Colorado has 43. So that's a lot when you consider the fact that Colorado is nowhere near as many people as California. Washington has 40, Oregon 30, Florida 27, New York 26. So most of the popular states tend to be, the West tends to be a little more popular right now. But if you look kind of in the East as well, you'll see a big cluster here. I mean, people kind of want to be where it's scenic and pretty and got the nice mountains. Because you look in the west, you have a lot more per capita stuff in the west, and then again the east. A lot of times it's going to be in the mountains, and then here the flyover states not really getting much love. Not a big surprise there, but I did think there'd be a little more folks that would be interested in the Great Plains or the prairie. Tippin, nothing has really surprised me too much. There are a few where somebody said, I have not really been to this spot, so put a pin somewhere near there. And I think the town that they said probably isn't the best one, but there's not really anything in terms of really caught me off guard. Like, what on earth were you thinking? That Northwest Pennsylvania one, it's Westford, maybe, I believe. Yeah, Florida's pretty popular. Most of the folks that want to move to Florida are not currently there. So that's a pretty popular spot for if you just obviously you hate the cold, you don't want to deal with it. That's the place you want to be. Yeah, Nashville has been pretty popular. I'm not sure exactly like what the main um, new jobs in town are. There's a lot of um, corporate medical insurance stuff like that. Um, I don't think it's exactly Kalamazoo. Um, I'm not sure what town it is, but it's not. It's not. I think it's Portage. Not sure how they pronounce it there, but um, yeah, Jackson Hole has quite a few. That's the big spot for a little town with a lot of pins. Um, yeah, there's probably 8 to 10 right there. That's a pretty popular spot. It's really nice. And you look just up here is Bozeman, Montana. So these are both popular spots because right in between the two is Yellowstone National Park and Grand Teton. So it's a really beautiful spot to live if you're um, interested in nice scenery. You don't mind the cold. Hey, Sean, thank you very much. I have been to New Jersey, but of all the states I've been to, it's the one I know the least. I spent the least amount of time in. So I've never actually spent the night there or done much there other than drive back roads between Philadelphia and New York City. I stopped in like Princeton and Trenton to see the state capitol, but I mean, that's about it. I haven't seen much of New Jersey, but I will be there this summer as part of our road trip. I'd like to go up the Jersey Shore, see some of the coastal towns. Hey, Beaver. Yeah, most of the pins for Texas are right in this area: Austin, San Antonio, a couple for Hill Country, Fredericksburg. Houston is the only metro area in the top 40, I think, that doesn't have a single pin, and 3 for Dallas metro area. So not a lot for the big Texas cities, but most of the folks want to be here. That's kind of the prettier part of the state. Hill Country, nice. And then a couple of pins out here in Marathon, little tiny town. I like this town. I'm surprised 2 people picked that. Hey, Tom, Northwest PA, Pymatunning Lake. Yeah, wherever that's pronounced, I'm sure that's not it. But yeah, that's a nice area up there. Ojai, California. Yeah, got a little bit of Ventura County up there. Yeah, I do. Spent a lot of time in Nevada. It's one of the states I've been to the most. Just being from California and driving to the southeast a lot, I often just go through Nevada. Spent a lot of time in Vegas. I don't like Vegas in terms of a place to live, but I think it's fun to visit. But I like Reno, Lake Tahoe area a little bit better. Yeah, Florida, Cosmois. Um, I mean, all of Florida is so low. In 100 years, Florida will probably be a much smaller state in terms of the coastline. Delaware Water Gap. It's what a national recreation area. It's part of the National Park Service, but not an actual national park, I think. Yes, there is one for Waco. I just got it earlier today. So somebody, I think that one for Waco was more general. Just put me somewhere in between the cities of Texas, like near Waco. So I don't think it was um, Pima tuning. Okay, all right, now I know. Bill Dotree. New York State has quite a few. It's one of the most popular states. I think there are 26 overall for New York State. And then a lot are in the city metro area, Catskills, uh, couple of for being on a lake in the Adirondacks. So a lot of it kind of nature oriented, Cayuga Lake, Saranac Lake, Woodstock, New Paltz, Lake George. So most of the New York ones are rural, kind of upstate, and then the cluster right there around the city. Yes, Heath. There is one for North Platte, Nebraska. Adam, I've not been to St. Pierre Island. I'm assuming you mean the one off of Newfoundland. No, but I have not been there. Nicholas, I don't prefer going by myself, but I do have more free time than most of the people I know, so I can take a couple of weeks off, and nobody else really can. So I'm often on my own. Sometimes I'll go on a long road trip. My wife can't go with me the entire time. Maybe she'll fly out for part of it and then kind of fly back. She can't take the weeks off. Um, I've been with friends, and but a lot of times just by myself. User 3937. I was in San Diego just 6 months ago or so. Yeah, I like it down there. Even though I'm from California, I really haven't spent that much time there. It was 6 hours drive from where I grew up, so I didn't really go there too often. But I mean, I like it a lot. It's one of those places where it's expensive, but that's it. It's kind of like with New York or LA or San Francisco. You can be like, well, it's expensive and it's this and it's kind of annoying and it's just the hassles. And then San Diego's like, well, it's expensive, but that's about it. Yeah, rural engineer. I'm not actually going to be in Kuwait. He lives in Kuwait, but we're going to meet up somewhere else. Right now, to get into Kuwait, you have to be a first order relative of a citizen. So it's really hard to get in. And from what he says, it's really boring there. There isn't much to do. So we're going to meet either in Dubai or Qatar. Um, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm really excited because I haven't been very far from home like that. So my first place being away from North America is going to be the other end of the planet. So that's going to be really interesting. Yes, there's still just the one Oklahoma pin. Somebody that wants to work at the National Severe Storms Laboratory in Norman. Um, Good reason, but that's still the only one there. I applied to graduate school at Oklahoma, and I wouldn't have been good enough for there. My math skills were not good enough for the meteorology department there. Um, the Southwest Virginia ones, uh, Roanoke, Blacksburg. Um, I'm not sure what this is. That's near Abingdon. I don't know, but this is Roanoke, Blacksburg, and a couple in the mountainous area. Thank you very much, Neil. My first job in geography was emergency management planning. I was at University of South Carolina, and I got a job working for the state emergency management division doing hurricane preparedness and planning stuff. So that's kind of what got me my first job in the field. And I continued to do that in Monterey, California, but the disasters were different, a little more wildfire. And it was right after that big tsunami in Sumatra in 05. So little tsunami planning for there. And I saw that just last week there was a small tsunami in Santa Cruz. That was I wrote the plan to help respond to that. So hopefully it's put to good use. But as far as getting into the field of geography, if you know GIS and technical stuff, you'll have a lot more opportunities than if you don't have the computer skills. But honestly, I would go to major university department websites like University of South Carolina, Arizona State, and a few others, and just kind of go check out what some of the folks are doing there. Because at South Carolina, they have an alumni board where people say what they're doing from geography and kind of how they've been doing with their degree and stuff. There isn't Southeast Wyoming is Laramie and Cheyenne. Southwest Wyoming is I don't know what town that is. Probably either Pinedale or Dubois. Not 100% sure, but that's the only one that I in southwestern Missouri or Wyoming, Missouri. Good Lord. I don't use GIS myself very often. To get the licenses for the ArcGIS, the Esri is really expensive, and the QGIS I haven't used it that much, but yeah, I mean I do use it, but just not that terribly often. Joe, actually, I do wanted to mention how I'm not going to be doing March Madness as I did it last year. I'm going to be gone for most of March, but that's not the real reason. I can't actually call it Geography March Madness. That's a trademarked term by CBS and NCAA. So I do want to do something very similar to that, but I just can't call it March Madness. And because I'm going to be gone in March anyway, I got something else planned. It'll be very similar. I think it'll be a lot better, but it just won't be in March, and it won't be called March Madness. It'll probably be in the summertime. Tall dude. Ohio has a handful. Most of them I'm not really familiar with the names. Cincinnati and Columbus are the only two that I know, but some of the other ones are smaller, I think suburban towns or small towns by a lake. But yeah, not a kind of see the I-71 corridor there. It's nice, but yeah, not a whole lot in Ohio. Yeah, Franklin, Tennessee, Nashville area is pretty expensive. Yeah, Tennessee is one of those places where a lot of times the houses look like they're cheap, but the wages are really low. So Chattanooga, I know, is one of the more expensive cities in the country relative to wages, and Nashville is probably even worse in terms of how expensive it is. Yes, we do have Bend, Oregon on here, right near the Newberry Crater area. Yes, Joe, Mississippi is the only state that doesn't have any. A couple of the Canadian provinces don't have one either. Adam, I think for me, it's not that I don't like Mississippi, but it struggles because there aren't any big companies headquartered there. There aren't any big parts of the economy. I think there's a Toyota plant there. That's about the only real major thing in the state. It's not a huge number one producer of anything. So it's just kind of struggles in that regard. It's not big for tourism. It's the only state in the South doesn't really have mountains except for Louisiana. But I mean, it's just, I don't know. It's got a lot going against it. But So do many other states too. Um, Ludd, the smallest town that got picked. I don't know. There are some small ones. Um, Somebody said, just put me in the middle of the Northwest Territories in Canada. So that really wasn't a town. But there are, yeah, some few small towns. This town, Marathon, Texas, is really small. But a couple of folks just wanted to be, said, put me somewhere on a lake, even though there's not really a town there. Are people leaving Tennessee who can't afford to live there? Maybe Nashville. Chattanooga is also kind of expensive. I don't know if anybody leaving because it's too expensive, but not a lot of good job opportunities here. Nashville at least has good jobs. Memphis is going to be the home of the new Ford electric plant, so that's probably going to do some growth in Memphis. It hasn't really grown that much in recent years. Android Prince just moved to Cambridge. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of places that can meet that kind of category. Just something that's smaller than a large suburb, but I mean, Cambridge is going to be one of the more ones you think about like that, where it's urban but it's still kind of a suburb. Okay, Nissan plant in Mississippi. Okay. How familiar am I with Delaware? A decent amount. It's not a very big state, so I didn't have to see a whole lot to see most of the state. But I was just in Dover and the beaches last summer, and my brother's in Wilmington, so I was just up there summertime as well. Actually, my favorite place to get a cheesesteak is in Delaware, on the Delaware side of the Philadelphia metro area. So people from Philly didn't like me saying that, but there are a few pins in Mexico. Got a couple, or one here for Puerto Penasco, and then the other ones are, I couldn't fit them on this map. There's another map for it. Actually, Florida has quite a few, but when they're along the coast, you can't see them as well. But there are quite a few in Florida. I think it's fifth or sixth in terms of overall states. Louisiana, there's only two, one for Covington, one for New Orleans. Covington's kind of like a suburb, I think, on the north end of the lake. The place that has the most pins is the biggest cluster is the Seattle metro area, Denver, and San Diego. Those are the three where you have the biggest cluster in one spot. Yeah, two pins on the Finger Lakes in New York. I'm not sure which one's which. Lake George, Cayuga Lake, and no, Saranac Lake's in the Adirondack. So it's probably Lake George. I don't know, but it's a nice area. Cheap. The town northeast of Cincinnati is Sugar Creek, maybe? I don't know. That's a suburb of, I'm not sure exactly. I think it's a suburb of either Cincinnati or Dayton. A lot of pins for Oregon. I think it's like 30. One of the most popular states. Let me see. Yeah, 30 in Oregon. Andy, this is a continuous thing that I'll be doing, and after this stream, I'll put together more of a breakdown of it Just kind of some of the general stats of it, but it's going to be an ongoing thing, and I'm going to eventually have it. I wanted to have it up tonight so you could click on the map yourself and look at it, but as yet, not yet. Hunter, yeah, there's a few in Delaware, or two at least, one for Newark and one for Rehoboth Beach. Yeah, that's it for Delaware. My pin itself is outside of Santa Fe, New Mexico. My wife's is outside of Asheville, North Carolina. I don't know if Manchester, New Hampshire has one. No, there's a few there, but not few in the state, but not one for Manchester. The best and worst state in the Midwest for livability. I don't know. I mean, from a statistical standpoint, Minnesota always ends up near the top of things. But I mean, I think like any other part of the country, it's not so much a state boundary, because you could say, parts of Ohio were not where you want to be, and some places are great. So I think it's not too much of a state boundary type thing. But if you don't like taxes, these states, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Illinois, Iowa, Nebraska, surprisingly, these are kind of high tax states. They not as many tourists there. You can't use sales tax as much, and the houses aren't the most expensive in the country, so property taxes are going to be a little bit different. So, but livability, I think it's great. I think the Midwest, the only issue is always going to be just the weather. So, people tend to want to be somewhere where it doesn't get cold, including myself. But I think you might start to see a trend, maybe perhaps a reverse trend of people moving back up to northern cities if they can work at home, because it's just so much cheaper up north. I mean, not the big cities of the Northeast, but just in general, the North is about the same housing costs as down here, but the wages are higher. So, yeah, Western Montana, real popular. This is the mountainous part of the state. You have a lot of beautiful areas, Glacier National Park up here, Missoula, Bozeman, Yellowstone. And this part of the state is more flat, more ranching, some oil and natural gas. So it's not as scenic. There's a couple of towns along I-90 here, but once you get to this part of the state, the northeastern part of the state, there's just nothing there. There's a big town will be like 5,000 people there. A breakdown of the worst cities. Start with Youngstown. Youngstown's pretty rough. I haven't been there in a while. It's the last time I was there, I'd put it in the same category as towns like Flint and Scranton, Pennsylvania. Just kind of, it's seen better days for sure. There actually are a couple in New Jersey. This one's Cape May down here, and then there's one in right across the river from New York. Somebody wanted to be on a high-rise apartment overlooking Manhattan, but not in Manhattan. Would I rather be in Kansas City or Dallas? Me personally, Kansas City, just because it's not as big and crowded, not as crazy, but it's still got a lot of good city stuff, great restaurant scene, and so it's has a lot to offer, even though it's not a huge city. Dallas is much, much larger, but I don't think has, if it's 5 times larger, I don't think it has 5 times as much of interest. So let me. If you love cold weather and low crime, Duluth, yeah, sure. The Midwestern states don't really have a lot of mountains. You do have some mountains in the northeast part of Minnesota and the UP of Michigan, northern Wisconsin, but they're not very high mountains. So if mountains are something you're interested in, this certainly is not the part of the country for you. But most of the states here, the highest point in the state is in the 1,000 foot range, under 2,000 feet. So not a lot of high elevations there. I don't think I've been to Newburgh, New York. Is that Rockland County, Westchester? I'm not sure. I don't think I've been there though. Yes, Traverse City, Michigan is popular. I'm not sure what's going on in Traverse City, but it's growing. It's like a small town. A lot of folks are moving there. It's a nice place, but I'm not sure what exactly is drawing the population growth there. Johnson City, Tennessee. I'm not real familiar with it. A friend of mine went to East Tennessee State University, which is there, but I'm not really familiar with the area. I know Bristol decently, but it's nice. It's a three-headed monster kind of metro area with they call the Tri-Cities. There's about 500,000 people or so in that metro area. Yeah, just one pin for West Virginia. Somebody wanted to be right next to New River Gorge National Park. So I don't know what goes on in the UP of Michigan in terms of jobs. I know it's struggling a lot uh, with jobs. So I know people that live up there, and it's just been an issue for a long time. People moving away. Most of the counties are losing population in the UP, and the only one that's gaining is the one that people want to move to here is Marquette. It's a college town. Um, Thank you, Moomin. No one wants to move to Starbase, Texas. Uh, we'll see if it comes to fruition. I'm not sure um, about that yet, but yeah, no pins for there yet. One for South Padre Island. Roach, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Um, the one here is actually on the Kansas side. I think it's Overland Park. Okay, Newburgh is Orange County. All right, that's pretty close. Castle, it's called the incline railway, and it goes up to the Lookout Mountain, which is actually a ridge, but it's called Lookout Mountain. No, it's not. That's not Charleston. That's New River Gorge National Park. Wichita, Kansas. It's been a while since I've been there. Um, I remember I went to the Great Plains Nature Center there, and it was right when the sunflowers were blooming. It was really cool to see this big field, just all the sunflowers. But I don't remember too much of the town. I don't remember it being um, very exciting. Victor, Indiana. I like Indiana. I mean, pretty much anywhere in the country, I'll find somewhere I like. Um, yeah, I was just in Indianapolis about a month or so ago. Uh, just kind of walking around there for the day. Um, yeah, I spent decent amount of time in the southern part of the state doing some camping, and there's some caving down there. So, not too familiar with Fort Wayne. I know it's been growing a decent amount, but I'm not really familiar with it. Android, there is one for the U.S. Virgin Islands, but no other territories. Yeah, mountains and scenery is definitely where people have the choice. I mean, I mean, in general, if you could live wherever you want, you're going to probably want to live somewhere that look out the window, it looks nice. So whatever you feel is something nice to look out of the window, whether it be beaches, mountains, lakes, rivers, or a skyline. I mean, I think that's kind of important for me at least. I think for a lot of folks too. Just if you're going to live somewhere, it might as well be somewhere that looks looks nice. Yeah, almost all the ones are Florida along the beach. There's several in the Tampa Bay area. Got a few down here in Miami. A couple in the Keys. These two are Fernandina Beach, Jacksonville. Not sure what that is. That's not Pan. I don't know what that is actually. Um, yeah, some along the Space Coast here. So um, yeah, but most of them are going to be in Florida. I think if people want to live in Florida, I think the beach is probably where they're going to largely want to be. Oh, I'll move over here so you can see the other side of the map. Now I'm going to block the East Coast. Yeah, East Group Properties in Mississippi. I'm not familiar with it, but yeah, I mean every state's going to have something that's going to be their biggest company, but I don't think. Um, I mean, that's not a huge company for it to be the biggest in the state, but I think again that's kind of the one of the biggest issues for Mississippi is just it hasn't really drawn a lot of big companies that want to move there. I mean, Alabama next door has done pretty good. Tennessee to the north has done pretty good, but Arkansas has got some new stuff in the northwest part of the state. But I mean, Mississippi, yeah, definitely struggling. Yeah, this eastern Nevada one is middle of nowhere. It's near Great Basin National Park. So it's either, I think it's like the town of Baker. It's just a little tiny town. There's nothing really there, but it's very nice scenery. But need to drive an hour or so to get to the grocery store. No, these Arkansas ones are Fayetteville and Springdale, and uh, maybe Rogers. That one, I'm not sure, but no, not Fort Smith. Fort Smith's pretty rough. Oh, whoops! I just skipped. Oh, okay, here we go. Yeah, Sedona has quite a few. I think there's 4 in Sedona and then 2 in Prescott, just south of there. I've not been to all 50 states. I've not been to Alaska or Hawaii, but um, maybe Hawaii later on this year. We'll see. Bighorn Mountains. It's this part. I don't know exactly. I've been all throughout Wyoming, but I don't know if I have been there. I haven't done any hiking or camping there. I maybe just driven through the area. Citrus County, Florida. Um, Probably that's not too far from Orlando. Spent a lot of time in Orlando. My wife went to graduate school at UCF there, so um, pretty familiar with that area. But I don't. know specifically Crystal River. I'm trying to think. I'm pretty sure I've been there though. The pins north of San Francisco are Marin County. It's a pretty wealthy suburban county for the Bay Area. I think there's San Anselmo, Mill Valley, I think is what they are. I have not been to Lake of the Woods or Point Roberts. So that's Lake of the Woods up here. It's that area where it's not contiguous to the U.S. The same with Point Roberts over there. But no, I've not been to either one of them. Mowgli, Austin. I go to Austin quite a bit. I've probably 3 years ago was the last time I was there, but I've been there probably at least 6 or 7 times in the past 15 years. And I'll be near there next week, but I won't actually be in Austin. We say Iowa, Ames, and yes, Ames and Iowa City. So the college towns, yeah, Des Moines also, and the fourth one is Dubuque. You might not be able to see it, but it's up there. So. There's a lot in Alaska. They're hard to see though. Of all the states, it's probably the hardest to see the Alaska ones. Of course, you can't see it at all when it isn't on the map on the screen, but several down here on the Kenai Peninsula and a couple down here on the southeast panhandle. Yeah, the Florida Keys, it's a different way of life for sure. I mean, there's a single road that connects you to the mainland, and it'd take you hours just to get back to any kind of normal type city. You have to evacuate for hurricanes, it's just extra effort. So it's a different way of life, but people love it down there. Average Joe, I think it's, you'll see a bunch of, the clusters of pins in bigger cities, but overall, I think people just want to be, I didn't really put it down to how many are urban and rural, but I think the proportion of pins in urban areas is less in proportion of people that live in urban areas. So I think like all these are just kind of small towns. And so I think in general, people want to live in places smaller than the average, because right now the average American lives in a big city or a suburb. Johnny, I didn't read your comment. I don't know what your comment was. I can't read them all, man. I'm sorry. State College, I've been there quite a few times. The friend I'm going to be visiting in the Middle East is from there, and we would go there, hang out. He's from the town of State College, and then went to Penn State there as well. So I spent quite a bit of time there, partied quite a bit. I remember a place called the Adam's Apple or something. They had like the original sin kind of drink. It was, yeah. And there was a place called La Bamba, burritos as big as your head. It's not there anymore, but I like that place. Yes, I've been to No Fear. I've been to Utah quite a bit. I spent a lot of time with the national parks down here, camping, hiking. That's one of my favorite parts of the country to go to for that. But also Salt Lake City. I like the city a lot too. So it's a. All right. Good night, Joe. Thank you very much, Andrew. Let me see. Idaho. Coeur d'Alene has 4. Most of the other ones are small towns, and there's 1 for Boise. That's cool. That's if you can get out there and do a road trip, that's cool, man. I always recommend that. as something that people can do to, a way to see places that you may not really ever see or just kind of hear about. Favorite place for food in the country? I don't know. That's a tough call. I think in general, regional, I like Southwestern, but I mean, there's good stuff all throughout the country. I mean, yeah, it's a tough question because food's always like one of the top things for me when I travel. Maine versus New Hampshire. Um, I just went to both of those for the first time last year. So Maine's pretty popular on here. They got a lot in the Portland area, a few along the coast. This is Bangor. I'm not sure what that is. New Hampshire doesn't really have that many. This one was Gorham. Just got this one recently, and then a couple on the coast. But Maine's definitely more popular than New Hampshire for this. Yeah, San Antonio, great food. Yeah, I mean, I like southwestern style, Tex-Mex, New Mexican style. I like stuff with a lot of spice. If I had to live somewhere cold, uh, I don't know. I'd still probably want to be in the West. I just like the Western, um, kind of the Western way. Just the wilderness, the dry heat that cools off at night during the summertime. Um, John, road tripping through Oregon and Washington. Um, no major advice, but in June, some of the roads to the mountains over the passes can still be closed, even though it's summer. It can often be closed well into the summer. We were trying to get to Oregon Caves National Monument a handful of years back, and I think it was June, and the road was still closed getting to it. Let's see. Tippy toes. I Yeah, I've dealt with plenty of hot. I mean, Central Valley, California, South Carolina, Tennessee. So heat is something I'm used to. I don't like the humidity, but I can deal with it, I think, a little bit more than the cold. I could do cold short term, but as far as living there, I don't know. That'd take its toll on me, I think, after a while. Hey, Anthony, thank you very much. I'm not sure where I got the cheesesteak in Delaware. It was in a strip mall, like a regular kind of businesses, like a hair salon next to it, and like this random stuff, like a convenience store. It was some guy's name, like Tom's or Steve's or something like that. Uh, Thank you, Illumzipulist. Yeah, I mean, I've done some stuff with Mr. Beat. He's really cool. We did uh, a live stream where we were doing like a geography trivia thing. That was a lot of fun. So I would like to do some stuff with similar, kind of like nerdy type channels, but nothing planned. Yeah, beef on weck. Um, I remember talking about that in a video. I never had it though. It looks really good. Brian, yes, Sweatman's in Holly Hills, really good. I like South Carolina style barbecue a lot. It's one of my favorite. It might be my favorite style of Southern barbecue. Um, but the Carolinas, I think, are the best for that. Georgia's, I think, kind of weak in terms of barbecue. Tennessee's awful for barbecue with the exception of Memphis, but the rest of the state is not that good. Colin, I think I will be in northern Maine this summer, but not quite sure exactly where. We were in southern Maine this past summer, but want to see a little bit more of the state. The creepiest thing that's happened while traveling, we got kind of tailgate followed out of town by a cop in a small town in Oregon. It was kind of scary, actually. It was like the first Rambo movie. I don't know if you've ever seen that old movie, Sylvester Stallone, but kind of how that started off was it happened to us. It was kind of scary, but that's probably the sketchiest thing that's happened. Tom, the ones for Washington, there's quite a few on the Olympic Peninsula here. I think this one's Twisp. I'd never heard of it before, but that's I think what it's called. And there's a couple of small mountain towns, but most of the ones for Washington are going to be in Seattle. I have not been to Watkins Glen. That's in wine country, is it? I have been to upstate New York, but not to Watkins Glen. Of course, I think people in New York only call this upstate. I call this upstate as well. So I think people got kind of upset because I was calling Western New York upstate. So I haven't really spent much time in the far north of the state, but mostly in the western part, Finger Lakes and Buffalo, Rochester. Hola, Playa del Carmen. Oh, I don't know. Phantom Tuba. I don't know what pin has the highest elevation. I haven't really thought about that. Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to think about that. As far as I know, there's none that are just say put me somewhere on a high mountain, but there are. I mean, Telluride, Colorado is pretty high elevation, but I don't know if that's the highest one. Danny, my favorite accent. I mean, I really like that the Maine accent. It sounds so weird, but like a lot of other accents, the older people have it, younger folks don't. But old folks in Maine sound kind of weird. They don't. I wouldn't even think they were from New England. They almost sound like they're from England, not New England. The way they kind of the old Maine accent is. As far as the least, I don't know. I don't know if I have a least favorite accent. Around where I live is pretty thick, twangy Southern accent. It's not the same as the Carolinas or Georgia. It's got a little more of a twang up around hairs, and then in the Carolinas, it's a little more Southern like this. But yeah, I think the Appalachians kind of have a thick accent. The best driving roads. Man, that's tough. I do like good windy roads. Man, that's hard to say, but I think in general the West is going to be where you have some of the more windy roads because you also think about the West is you're less likely to have a deer jump out on you. So where I'm at, a lot of great roads for driving, but you have to be careful with deer in the wooded areas. I do not know what the best days would be for off-roading. That's not something I do a whole lot of or much of at all. So yeah, I can't say for sure. I've never been arrested on a road trip. That wouldn't be fun. Hey, Machi, thank you very much. The pin between Hamilton and Helena. I don't know. Let me see. Phillipsburg or Superior? I don't know which one that is. But there's also one for Montana that's just someone that said, put me in Montana somewhere. So Truxton, New York. Let me see. There is a Truxton, New York on there. So yes. I try to get it as close to where it actually is as possible. For the most part, it's pretty good. Atlantic City in the next 30 years, I don't know. Obviously doing the gambling hasn't been the cash cow for the city that they expected. It's a really, really rough place. You got the casinos, then once you get a block away, it's got some dire straits there. So as far as the future, I don't know, but the New Jersey shore, I mean, it's not really growing in population. So I haven't spent much time there. So I'm not sure what's specific to Atlantic City, but that's not the part of the state that has much growth. NOAA, the state with the worst roads. Arkansas is pretty bad. Michigan's pretty bad. I mean, usually these states, with the freeze thaw effect, you're going to get pretty bad roads. The southern states don't have quite the same excuse, but Arkansas is pretty bad. Oklahoma is pretty bad. But Kentucky is really good. Kentucky probably has the best roads, I think, in the country. States that seem the friendliest. I mean, honestly, I think everywhere in the U.S. is really friendly, with one exception. I'm not going to get into that, but I don't think any one state is more friendly than the other. You hear people talk about the Southeast is friendlier than the other parts, but I don't think it's any different. I just think people in the Southeast are more likely to say hi to you, but doesn't mean they're being friendly. This kind of means they're being polite. But I think people are friendly pretty much wherever you go. The Hampton Roads in Virginia. I don't know. There's two in Williamsburg. I don't think these are Williamsburg. There's nothing down here in Norfolk or Virginia Beach. Gurkaron, thank you very much for the super chat. Yeah, I have a really good book on that kind of stuff, like how different ethnic groups have kind of clustered in certain spots. So it's I may very well do something like that. Nebraska is mean people. Come on, man, really? Yeah, Pennsylvania's roads are not the best either. And Pennsylvania has kind of annoyingly low speed limits too. North Carolina has annoyingly low speed limits too. Yeah, Georgia's roads are good too, Brian. Yeah, Kentucky and Georgia. I mean, so we live here. We're surrounded by states with good roads, but Tennessee itself, they're okay. I don't know as far as states with the worst drivers. I tend to think that people are generally good drivers wherever you go, but maybe not considerate drivers. But one thing I do notice is you see way more high speed daredevil stuff on interstates in the Northeast, like New York and New Jersey. I mean, people will be going weaving in and out like at really, really high speeds. Um, and that's common. I mean, you would see that every now and then in other parts of the country, but it was really common up in the Northeast to see people just really high speed weaving in and out. El Greco, I mean, from this is not obviously going to be the best sample you're going to get, but a lot of folks want to be in New York, and I think New York is the kind of place like San Francisco or LA where people don't really necessarily want to move from there. It's just it's too expensive for them. But if everywhere in the U.S. costs the same, I mean, I think if everywhere had the same cost of living, same housing costs, same taxes, I think there'd be a lot more folks in New York. I think that's the biggest issue is just how expensive it is. I have not been to the monument at the Four Corners. Um, I spent a lot of time in that part of the country, but not at that actual monument. Running red lights rampant in Utah. Yeah, I haven't noticed that any more than other places, but I know Road Guy Rob, a good, really good channel, um, does a lot of stuff with traffic patterns in Utah, and he's talking about some of the. They often have like new signs and new street pattern or new traffic patterns, new different types of stoplights. Often get tested out in Utah. So when you drive, if you haven't driven there and you're driving through some of the Salt Lake metro area, you might see certain types of stoplights and intersections. They're like, what is this? And they're just kind of trying it out over there. Um, John Fleischer, that's a really good question. If Chattanooga is more influenced by Nashville or Atlanta, um, wow, that's a really good question. We get people from Nashville often move here, but people from Atlanta visit here. So I think the reason why stuff is so expensive in Chattanooga is because we're so close to two other expensive cities. So folks from those places can come here and spend $30 for a dinner, which is fine for them. It's expensive for us. But I think that, I mean, I would say probably Atlanta, even though we're in Tennessee with Nashville, but I would say Atlanta probably has a little more of a little influence on us here. Procyon, I do not have a favorite country because I haven't been to other ones outside of North America. So I will be in Oman in a couple of weeks, and one of the main reasons why I wanted to go there for so long is to go hiking, uh, see the national parks and some of the caves. Superior Fox, I just like. I mean, the food and the cultures is something I like about Santa Fe. It's just it's got a good mix of different groups, and no one group has had a monopoly on the culture of there. So the food's really good. A lot of great art galleries. Yes, I am familiar with Not Just Bikes. I like that channel. Josh, I had to look up quite a few towns on the map. Like some of these are places I've never heard of. So some of these little small towns, I did have to look them up. But a lot of them, I knew where they were, but I still wanted to look it up to get it as close to possible on here, so it's um, so it looks good as possible. The best sunsets. I don't know. I couldn't say that for sure. Somewhere where the air is clear. Or actually probably want it where the air is polluted for better sunsets. Quinn, I'm not sure what the Enchanted Highway is, but I've driven through western North Dakota a lot. We've been to Theodore Roosevelt National Park several times. Although I'm not sure if that road we were on or any of those roads around there is called that. I moved from California to here. My wife got a job in Chattanooga, and so we decided to move here. But when we had no idea what Tennessee was like when we moved here. We didn't know what it cost or what taxes were, so we just kind of moved just based on geography. Sarah, our favorite town in Maine. Um, I don't remember all the town, but we really liked Portland, the big city. Um, but trying to remember some of the towns. Like we were this part of the state is where we spent most of the time near the New Hampshire border. Real nice area, but I can't remember too many of the town names. Grayson, no, I have not taken Amtrak. Sarah, yes, I do like Philadelphia. I was there just last year when I was visiting my brother in Wilmington, Delaware. We went up to Philly, um, walked around quite a bit. Just probably spent half a day just walking around Center City, and uh, yeah, it's nice. I like the old revolutionary times. The 18th century construction there is real nice. South Street, East Passyunk, the stores and stuff there. Yes, I did major in geography, specialized in climatology. What is my favorite time zone? Uh, I don't know. I do like living at the western end of a time zone like we do here, so it stays light longer. Anna, no, not quite, because the job I had in California, the same job here, paid barely half what I was making in California. So we definitely didn't go from rags to riches for sure. Um, Certain jobs, the wages will be a little bit closer, but for what I was doing, it was a big difference for wages. I don't know what the DMV area is. Uh, I don't know what that means. I have not been to Alaska. I have not been on a cruise. I have no desire to go on a cruise either. I don't know about the best markets, city markets. I tend to go to those whenever I go to a place. I can't say for sure which one is the best. Um, Benjamin, no, there's no particular place I would recommend moving to um, for climate change. Although wouldn't, I would avoid moving to Florida or low-lying islands. I mean, there are certain islands in the Pacific that aren't even going to exist in about 50 years. Kind of crazy, but um, I saw something where the Midwest, like the Great Lakes area, is going to be the best possible spot for to be somewhere for climate change. But I don't know how that was how that was determined. Oh, DMV. Oh, DC, Maryland. Okay, okay. Um, yeah, it's big. I'm not a huge fan of like the big cities. So like Los Angeles is not one of my favorites. Um, I mean, I like DC. I think it's great, but I couldn't live in that kind of giant metro area. But I do think DC is great for walking around. I think it's really great place to visit. I like Annapolis. Um, I don't think Baltimore is as bad as it gets a rap for, but um, yeah, that area is just so crowded, so congested. Whenever I drive from here to the Northeast, I make it a point to go around that area. So, um, but yeah, the best preserved historic town. I don't know. I mean, I think Santa Fe is one of the best ones. It's the square. There's you can look at the square and then or take a picture of the square and look at a picture of it from like 300 years ago. It looks almost the exact same. So it's um, if we were to move again, where would we move? I don't know. It depends on um, my wife's employment. So that's going to be the largest drawer, the largest factor in where we might go. But I think we've been here long enough. I mean, I'm trying to work on an exit strategy for here. Just kind of, been here a long time, trying to move on, see something else. The reason why the strip from Oklahoma to North Dakota is so boring. I mean, it's only boring if you think it is. I mean, everybody's preferences are different. I really like Western North or Western Nebraska here. The Western Dakotas, I think, are really pretty. Oklahoma is a lot prettier than you think, but for the most part, these are not the most popular states because kind of like you can see here with all the mountains and scenery, and people want to be on the lakes and on the coast. Uh, I think scenery is important, and for most people, this is not the prettiest scenery. Um, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's boring. I have a video calling out some of those states are being boring to visit, and they can be a little boring to visit. But in terms of what you like for your personal lifestyle or for what you want, where you want to live, um, it can be anywhere. But uh, yeah, but most folks don't want to live in some of those uh, Great Plains states. Uh, yeah, I've played GeoGuessr in the past, but I mean, I'm just not. I don't like it as much as I thought I would. Um, I like to watch other folks play it, but yeah, I thought I would be a lot more into it than I am. Adam, what is congestion? I don't know what congestion pricing is. I've seen a comment about. I don't know what that is. What that is, but I don't like toll roads. Um, I think the places that have toll roads don't let you know just how much you're spending on them because it doesn't count as taxes. So Florida would be like a low tax state, but the tolls are so high that if you counted that as part of your taxes, it wouldn't be that low of a tax state. So uh, I think tolls are kind of a sneaky way to nickel and dime you, kind of like sales tax, really high sales tax. But I don't know what congestion pricing is. Maybe it costs more when it's busy. Um, but yeah, I don't know. Best college town? That really depends. I mean, if you're talking about towns or it's just the college town, like there's nothing else there, um, or there's ones that are like say Raleigh, North Carolina, which is a college town with also a state capital, a lot of other things going on there. But in terms of ones that are just a university, and I think again, State College, Pennsylvania is one of the better ones. Um, I mean, the Ivy League towns are kind of cool. They're can be a little, Ithaca can be a little stuck up kind of place, but it's a nice town. Davis, California is a really cool one. But I mean, my earliest road trips, they were all like road trips, and we stop and see all those. Um, no near-death experiences while road tripping, thankfully. Yes, Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia, area is referred to as TAG for the 3 states. It's the top caving area probably in the world. Yeah, I will do something similar to March Madness, but it's not going to be in March. And I mentioned a little bit ago, I can't actually call it Geography March Madness because that's a trademarked term. So I will do something very similar, but it won't be called that, and it won't be in March. It'll be in the summertime. Roman, border of Northern and Southern California. I don't think there really is a border, um, but I would say that the north-south divide of the state isn't halfway. I'd say it's more like here. I think here you have the transverse mountain ranges, and like if you live there, it's called the Grapevine. And so everything south of there is like LA, San Diego, the beaches, the desert, that kind of Southern California. Everything north of that is more agriculture and oriented and high tech and less desert. So I think that's the main divide. And if you were ever to divide the state in two, it would have to be there. There's really no other way to do it. Living in an exclave? Uh, no, probably not. I mean, I wouldn't be against being in an exclave for the sake of being there, but just I can't think of one where I would want to be. Oh, um, yeah, New Mexico doesn't have a good source of water, and that's something you really don't ever hear about too much is water availability. To me, that should be one of the most important things that gets talked about, but it never gets talked about. Um, I mean, really, this whole part of the country here is there's no water. I mean, the Ogallala Aquifer here is drying up. That's feeding a lot of the agriculture and the Great Plains, some of the wheat and grains. I mean, there's just no water. I mean, it's going to have to eventually be ocean desal plants along California, and Arizona is probably going to have one here in Mexico. But that's it has to be that way. There's no water. I mean, it has to be ocean water desalinated. There's really no way that you can continue to have growth in the Southwest without taking care of the water situation first, but they don't do that. I do not use ArcMap GIS. Congestion prices, variable tolls. Um, I mean, I guess it makes sense, but I don't know all the details of it. Oh, I just lost where I'm at. Trying to get caught up here. Flagstaff's a nice college town. Of course, it's so touristy. The last time I was there, it was just congested. I mean, it felt like a lot more than just a college town. There's a lot of people moving there, and it's so close to the Grand Canyon. Albert, I don't know what Georgia would do without income tax. Uh, I think part of the problem right now is you're starting to see states that want to lower taxes, but the states I've seen that want to lower taxes are already states that don't generate enough taxes. So I'm not sure how that's going to work. The highest price toll, um, the bridges in New York are pretty expensive, and Florida is pretty expensive too. But I don't know which one's worse. Colin, I post a little bit of my travels, but I tend to just put images up on Instagram and not so much do a video on the actual trip itself. Um, so I will post a couple of things from my road trip that I'm taking off for in the next week or so. But in terms of like an actual just travel type video, I don't, or a vacation type video, I don't really expect about doing those. Peyton, Reading. I like Reading. I don't know why it doesn't. Yeah, one thing I think is you hear about Californians talk about how expensive it is, and then they'll move to some other state, but the interior parts of California are as cheap, if not cheaper, than a lot of other parts. But a lot of times Californians will look down on a place like Reading. Oh, it's Reading. It's in the valley. It gets hot. It's not the coast, but it's still nicer than most cities of that size range in other parts of the country. So it is pretty cheap too. Yeah, March Madness. Joseph, I have been to the Antelope Valley. A friend of mine lived in Lancaster there for a while. Yeah, Ron, 707. That I mean, yeah, the southern part of that area code is really expensive. The northern part is kind of uh, methed out, kind of rough. But I think some of those areas are good value to buy, like around Lake County and stuff. But I mean, it's it's kind of dumpy right now. But this is, I think, the time to get it while it is kind of dumpy and the prices are reasonable. Let's see. Chris, I do have a pin for Kingston, Ontario. I don't know if it's yours. This is Kingston, I believe. Um, no, that one. I don't know. One of those two. But yeah, I have it down there. But if it was just recently, I don't have it up on the map yet. Uh, Colin, I have been to South Texas, and the beaches are pretty nice. Oh, I just lost where I'm at. I wouldn't say they're as nice as South Florida beaches, but there are some nice ones. Yeah, as far as South Texas goes, there's not a lot of development here. Um, it's like a big ranching area. A lot of this area has some oil refineries. Um, but yeah, there isn't as much growth there as you might think in an area that would be, a nice beach warm area. I'll move back over to the other side. Um, I've been to almost all the state capitol buildings. So I've been to 48 states. I think I've been to all the ones, all the capitol buildings of the states I've been to. So I've been to 48. I haven't been inside all of them, but yeah, I've visited most of them. All right, let me grab something really quick. All right, my monitor is. All right. All right. Yeah, Albert, I haven't heard about Georgia getting rid of income tax. I mean, I don't see how they could possibly do that. I mean, Tennessee has no income tax, but doesn't generate anywhere near enough. Tennessee needs higher taxes, honestly. North Dakota. One is for Williston, one's for Bismarck. So that's Williston. And so this area is, it's all right. It's an interesting little town. Yeah, Viking. I mean, they can make a lot of money selling water to the west, but yeah, that hasn't happened, obviously. Yeah, I like Roanoke, Peyton. I put it on my list of best small cities. Real nice, pretty area there. It's not a very big city, but it feels bigger than it is because it's got a nice little downtown. I don't Phantom. I don't usually use navigation apps. I'll use Google Maps if I need to find a specific like a business. But in terms of like getting around, I don't usually use them. Um, I have a paper atlas I'll use a lot because I don't always care which way Google wants to send me. So I just kind of just look at the map and kind of decide I'll take this road for a while, and don't get lost too often. Um, the Ozarks, I mean, I guess you could say it's similar to the Appalachians that it's very green, a lot of water. Um, it's mostly limestone, and the western flank of the Appalachians is limestone. So there are some similarities, but the elevations are much higher here. The Ozarks don't really have very high elevations. I think the highest one is under 3,000 feet. It's not very high mountains. I have not been to Cape Cod. I will be there this summer, though. I have been to a Culver's. That's the fast food joint in the Midwest, I think. I don't remember. I don't remember enough to be gaga about it. Um, Procyon. I just naturally was into maps. I just started reading maps when I was a kid just for the heck of it. I don't know what got me into it, but that's Firebolt. There in the description, you can look at at the link to the PayPal page. That's where you can get a pin to go up on this board. All right. I don't know of a state that could use toll roads. I mean, I guess technically every state could use more revenue, but um, it's not my personal preferred way of generating revenue for states, but it works for some of them. Um, I can drive 12 hours or so. I normally don't, but if I have to, I can. Um, if I go say 10 hours of driving, it's going to take about 11 hours to do it, considering stops. So that's about the most I will do, but I can go more. It just depends on the type of trip I'm on and how much of a hurry I'm in. But if I'm in that much of a hurry where I have to drive 12 hours a day, then I'm probably not going to be on the road trip anyway. I've not been to Hawaii. Vegas, Vermont. Um, it was a little rough. I was expecting all of Vermont to be kind of cute and stuff, and Rutland was little rough around the edges, but it wasn't bad. I mean, it's Vermont. It's still pretty nice. The worst part of Vermont is still pretty nice. Drew, I've been to both Toronto and Montreal. I like them both a lot. I would say they're two of my 5 favorite cities in North America. They're really nice. Great for walking. I walked from the top of Mount Royal up all those stairs all the way around Montreal over to the insectarium thing. I probably walked 15 kilometers that day. And Toronto, same thing. Great for walking. Um, yeah, I think they're really good. Niagara Escarpment, not familiar with it. James, Mississippi is the only state with no pins. Um, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and New Brunswick are the provinces with no pins. Anna, I have a pretty good internal compass, um, but I do get lost sometimes. I don't mind getting lost sometimes too. It depends on the situation. How many pins? I think they're like 800 pins, something like that. I have been to the Michigan UP several times. Uh, I'll sometimes road trip when I'm going to Detroit. I'll go up this way across the UP and then down, do kind of an oval route like that. Um, so yeah, I've done that way a few times. Pictured Rocks is really nice. That's Tequamanon Falls, and um, there's a spot we go camping here in the Hiawatha National Forest. But yeah, we like it up there a lot. I don't go to Nashville as much as you might think, because living only 2 hours from there. We go to Atlanta way more often. If we're going to drive 2 hours, it's usually going to be to Atlanta. But probably go to Nashville. We lived here for 12 years. Probably been there 5 times, so not as much as you would think. Beaverman. I'm not sure what the next big city will be. It's hard to say. Wyoming is it's not going to be Wyoming, because Wyoming, they won't issue building permits there, so you can't really move there even if you want to. So um, Wyoming's had about 580,000 people for about 50 years now, so it doesn't grow, and yeah, they don't want you moving there. Sarah, best pizza? I have no idea. Yeah, it's definitely, I can't say for sure. Yeah, Pittsburgh, Gondola. Pittsburgh is one of my favorite cities for walking. Uh, yeah, I love. Yeah, that's just great. A lot of the hills are great for fitness. Going across the bridges to the south side, I think is really nice. Peyton, Milwaukee, and Chicago are. I mean, there's already no space between the two. Um, I don't. I think they're too far apart to be considered one metro, but it is going to be essentially like a megalopolis, like the Great Lakes megalopolis kind of thing. But they are a little bit too far to be one metro. Richard, I've only been to a few Mexican states, just the ones that are along the border, and then Baja California Sur, which is where Cabo San Lucas is. We went there for vacation, and then Jalisco, which is where Puerto Vallarta is. We went there for vacation, but none of the other states aren't along the border or um, those two resort towns. The color of the pins don't mean anything. They just so if there's like four next to each other, I'll have different colored ones, so they don't all mix into each other. Joe, I do videos often not long after I've gotten back from visiting there. So I've been to the Dakotas many times. I One of my earliest videos was actually on the Dakotas. It's been 4 years by now, so I probably need to do something again. But yeah, we're up there quite a bit, outdoors type stuff. So that's um, but yeah, the next time we go up there, I'll definitely do something on it. Andrew, I don't like any of those drives. Um, the one to Atlanta is definitely the worst because it's always busy. Um, Nashville can be a pain if it's been snowing. Like the past week, it can be kind of a pain to go over that pass. But the one to Knoxville is probably the best one. Michigan versus Ohio. I mean, I know those are two states that kind of have a rivalry there. I mean, Michigan has more wooded type stuff, more wilderness, so I tend to like that a little bit more. I prefer Detroit to Cleveland, but I prefer Cincinnati to. I don't know. I like them both, but I do think Michigan's got more woods and just a little more interesting outdoor stuff. Liam, Colorado will be one of the next one of the next state videos I have coming up. I don't know where this shirt came from. It was a gift from either my parents or my wife some years ago. I don't know where it came from. Probably some from a website. Benjamin, the mountains around here are really nice for waterfalls. There's so much water in this area. I mean, 60 inches of rain in East Tennessee, West North Carolina. So a lot of great waterfalls. Um, I do stay away from the national park, Great Smoky Mountains National Park, because it's so crowded. But you can get the same scenery, the same really cool stuff without actually having to be in the national park. Yeah, Canyonlands National Park is great. It's nobody goes there. I don't know why. It's right off a main road. It's close to the interstate. Arches National Park is right there, and it's always packed. I don't know why people don't go to Canyonlands, but it's easy to visit and it's hardly ever crowded. Go OC. I'm definitely a canoeist. I don't have a paddle board. Yeah, I'm definitely a sit and switch or a kneel and J. You know, I'm always sitting down or kneeling in my canoe. Jimmy, my favorite movie uh, is actually it's UHF with Weird Al Yankovic and Kramer from Seinfeld. It's not a very popular movie, but I think it's hilarious. Yeah, I've not been to Puerto Rico. I would love to go. I mean, there's almost nowhere I don't want to go, but I have not been there. We've been to the Caribbean several times, but not to Puerto Rico. Hendersonville, North Carolina. I like it a lot. It's a nice little town. It's close to Asheville, so if you want to be close to the restaurants and the cool shops of Asheville, but not live in the city, where it can be a little funky for people, but you can live near there and it's real nice. So yeah, Hendersonville is a great spot, I think. Drew, do I think the boom in the southeast will last? Well, I don't think there isn't really a boom in the southeast. There's a boom here, not just the pins. I mean, like in general here, but there's not a lot of boom here. So it's not the southeast so much. It's basically the Carolinas, Georgia, and East Tennessee. Um, Huntsville's doing pretty well, but a lot of the South just isn't booming that much. But in terms of the parks that are growing a lot, um, I think what's happening is just you see this the back and forth where it's people it's expensive here, taxes are high, we're going to go here, but now it's becoming more expensive here and it's becoming cheaper up here. So I think you're going to just kind of see some back and forth. Um, because right now jobs are coming to the southeast because the wages are low. So you can have automotive assembly plants down here for lower wages than here. But as people are moving here, it's becoming more expensive. People are demanding more wages. Um, so I mean, we'll see. I think North Carolina and Georgia are the two that I think are really doing the best in terms of diversifying their economy and going um, kind of doing things smartly. South Carolina, I don't their growth has not been, I don't think, as sustainable. They're going after retirees a lot after Florida. Um, Tennessee, like here, it's automotive assembly, a few of these in the state. Um, so a lot of these states rely on automotive assembly. So that's going to be a big change in the next 10 years. We'll see how, when things start to go electric, that'll affect the Southeast a lot because there's so much automotive assembly down here. Richard, I do have a map of where I've been, so you can. There are lots of different websites you can do that with. Um, there's one called Mob Rule, Mobrule. That's one of the main ones for tracking your travels. Yes, I have been to Scottsdale, Arizona. It's a wealthy suburb of Phoenix. Um, it has a nice little old town, like at the main street downtown. Uh, Nova. The main. I wanted to go over to the Middle East is to go to Oman, which is the southeastern corner of the Arabian Peninsula. It's not a very well known country. It's kind of the least known country over there, but it's uh, beautiful mountains, beautiful caves, limestone, a lot of great uh, outdoor scenic beauty there. And and I just want to see the kind of the modern craziness of Dubai and Doha. So it's just be something so different than what I'm ever experienced. I'm just really excited about getting a chance to see it. Jeff, I have not done any of the big trails. Um, I, this doesn't really interest me, honestly. I know people that have done the Appalachian Trail, and that's uh, I mean, I've done parts of it, like hike for a few hours. This part of it, but in terms of doing the entire thing, I have not, and it doesn't really interest me. It's something I probably wouldn't. I probably will never do those. My favorite chain restaurant? I don't know. I don't know. I like Skyline Chili. Liam, I've not been to Nova Scotia. Certainly would like to, but have not been there. Yeah, sweet tea. I'm no housing expert, but man, there's no way these prices can be right. I mean, or sustainable, right? Because I mean, look back at 2006 and 2007 when everything was inflated and there was the housing crash. I mean, I'm not sure if that's where we are now. I'm not going to pretend to be a housing expert, but man, I don't see how they can keep rising. Because if somebody sells a house for $500,000, I mean, somebody bought that house. So I don't see how it's. I mean, yeah, I don't see how these prices are sustainable. Um, so as far as flattening out, I don't know. But yes, the Midwest is probably the cheapest place right now in terms of house value. Of course, anywhere like in the small town, middle of nowhere, it's going to be cheap. But if you want to be in at least a decent sized city, the Midwest or yeah, the Midwest is the cheapest part right now. Yellowstone and Glacier National Parks are both fantastic. Especially Yellowstone is going to be really busy. Doesn't really matter what time of year you go. It's going to be busy. We were there in early May, and it was really crowded. Um, but I think in general, the Western national parks are best to visit in September and October. Yellowstone will be cold in October, but it'll be nice, not huge crowds. In terms of other consolidated metro areas, there are a few that aren't really considered one metro. Like Cincinnati Dayton is one where it usually is not considered one because there isn't a lot of growth between the two. So if they were both growing a lot and growing into each other, I think you might call those one metro, but there's still a lot of space between the two. Boston Providence is one where I think it's basically one metro anyway. And like some folks, we were just talking about the Great Lakes megalopolis on the shore of Lake Michigan. Chicago, Milwaukee is basically one metro, but I think self-driving cars will change a lot. It'll change road tripping for sure. I mean, just sit in a car, type something in or to say something here, car, take me here. I mean, I don't know, the seats in the car will probably face each other. That'll be very interesting. I mean, I like driving, but I certainly am not going to be a Luddite when it comes to self-driving cars. But I think it will change travel dynamics for sure because, you know, a lot of folks, I don't want to drive somewhere because it might take 8 hours. Well, if I can sleep for that time, the car is just going, then maybe. But yeah, Stewart. I wanted to get to Cotter before the World Cup. I think it's already a popular spot, but I think it'll become super, you know, overcrowded tourist spot after this year. Um, Favorite national park east of the Mississippi? Um, yeah, that's tough. I like Congaree. It's right here. It's a real small park, but it's real nice. Um, Everglades down here is another really nice spot. And I've not been to Isle Royal. I would love to go up there, but I've not been there. But I'd love to go paddling up there. The best Ohio or Mississippi River city? I don't know. I like Cincinnati. I like Pittsburgh. Um, I mean, St. Louis. I like those kind of river cities. They often are looked down on, kind of rough, Rust Belt kind of places. But yeah, I like them. I like those old timey river cities. My favorite cars. I like Nissan Z sports cars. The best small cities in the Midwest for and the South for walking. Um, I mean, the South is not a good part of the country if you're into walking. The Sun Belt in general, the cities are not very well designed for walking. Most of the Sun Belt cities have been developed since the advent of cars being the main thing. Um, but yeah, I don't how to think. Chattanooga definitely not a good city for walking. I can't think of any city in the South that really is a great city for walking. The Midwest, like some of those river cities like Pittsburgh or Cincinnati or St. Louis, are pretty good for walking. Chicago. Um, Yeah, I didn't go to like some of those, like the Derby, was it Derby, Vermont, or Derby Line, Vermont. Some of those towns that straddle the border. I didn't really go up to the Canadian border area when we were in New England, but I'm going to be in the Mexican border area next week. Basically, driving this route here off the interstate, and so it's really interesting. Some of those border towns, a lot of them are really just this, like Nogales, Arizona. It's just one city that's part of it's in Mexico. Um, so I'll do some stuff talking about that, but the ones along the Canadian border, I'm just not as familiar with. Hey, Thread Dripper, hope you guys are enjoying it. Yeah, Stuart, Tennessee. I mean, Chattanooga has hardly any sidewalks. I have to drive a few miles to find somewhere I can walk for a few miles. It's kind of frustrating because if I were to just leave my house and start walking, I can only go a half mile before I'm at a busy street with no sidewalk. So it's really frustrating. Yeah, the walking bridge downtown is nice, but the immediate heart of downtown is really the only part of the city where you can walk around because there actually are sidewalks. But once you get away from that heart of downtown, there's no sidewalks. It's so weird. I definitely do hotels and camping. I rarely do Airbnb just for like a one night on a road trip. It's not really good. Doesn't work out as well for me. Uh, I like Laredo. I think Laredo is it's the most Mexican city in the U.S. So if you want to see what Mexico is like and not cross the border, Laredo, Texas is pretty much it. Because most of the other cities along the border are American cities, but have a large Mexican population. But Laredo is a Mexican city in the U.S. New Orleans is pretty good for walking if it's not middle of summer. I'll be walking in New Orleans Tuesday. No, my parents did not really get me into traveling. We hardly traveled growing up. That was one thing we didn't really do very much. Was go on vacation. Eric, I will not be in a national park that straddles Mexico. The Oregon pipe cactus right here. I'll be there, but it doesn't go into Mexico. I'm not going to be going into Mexico on this trip. Steve, lesser known towns with nice waterfront recreation. Um, I mean, there's a lot. I mean, there's all kinds of little towns along rivers and lakes. Um, some of the smaller towns along the Northern California and Oregon coasts. They're just real small towns that don't get cold in the winter. Um, but the ones around the Great Lakes, yeah, those are going to be some pretty rough winters. Yeah, San Francisco, I think, is the best city for walking in the U.S. I love it. I'll be there next week, and I usually spend one day there just walking from one end of the city to the other, from the bay to the ocean. Yeah, the Greenway in Nashville is nice. I like those kind of ways you can get through the city without having to go on the streets. Like I was just in Indianapolis last month. There's a canal walk there. It's real nice. The most well-known one's the River Walk in San Antonio. But those are really nice to be able to go through and not have to deal with traffic and stoplights and stuff. Snips, the most popular spots are Seattle, Denver, and San Diego. Rust sandbags. For the places I've been in Canada right now, I would say that Montreal is my favorite. And well, decent chance I'll be back in the middle of the country this year at some point. Uh, I have no clue who's in the Super Bowl. Yeah, so I don't know for sure. I mean, it is possible, armchair, to visit all the states in one year. It'd be difficult, but you can certainly do it. I've probably never done more than 20 in a single year. Paul, yeah, I mean, I like living in the U.S. I'm an American. I've never lived anywhere else. Um, I'm not sure if I could spend a long period of time in another country. I wouldn't mind living somewhere else for a little while, but as far as like permanently moving to another country, probably not. But um, we'll see. I love the Caribbean. If I could totally see myself living down there, but maybe not forever though. Andrew, yeah, I haven't talked too much about Arkansas, even though I go through it a lot. I was there last summer. I did a little bit of talks a little bit about Little Rock, but not much else. Um, yeah, it's okay. It's a state that I know mainly for the state parks. I don't know it as um, for the cities as much. So I like Hot Springs. Fayetteville is nice, but kind of the eastern half of the state I'm not familiar with because when I'm doing road trips, I tend to. That's not far enough for the first day. It's only like a 6-7 hour drive from here, so I usually want to get farther than that the first day. So I often skip Arkansas and Mississippi because I'm trying to get started on the road trip. But um, yeah, it's a beautiful state, very green. Hello, Jorge, Monterey. Yeah, Monterey's booming right now. A lot of automotive assembly plants there. I have been to Bodie, California. It's been a long time though. I was a kid. Yeah, it's like a field trip. Battle Mountain, Nevada. I knew someone that lived there. Believe it or not, it's a tiny little town right along I-80. Not much there, but yeah, she was living there for a few years. Broomfield, Colorado. That's a really interesting spot where it's just the city in its own county. And there's actually a pin for one of those in the middle of Denver is specifically for Broomfield. So this kind of the history of why it's its own city, why it's its own county is kind of funny, but um, I mean, it's a nice little suburb. Charles, yes, I've been to Arcata, Eureka, that whole northwest part of the state. Um, it's surprisingly cheap up there for being on the coast. I know Eureka has had some issues with a lot of the opioid crisis. A lot of the houses there not been well taken care of, but you can get a house there for pretty cheap. Live on the coast. Um, yeah, that part of the coast it does not get warm. I mean, it's going to be long sleeve t-shirt and jeans at the beach at those places. Not the that ain't San Diego up there, but that's a nice part of the state. So that's just another place where people from LA or the Bay Area like, oh, we got to get out of California. It's so expensive. But I mean, there are parts of your own state that aren't that expensive. Um, Crescent City is a rough coastal town. It's a little kind of a, what's the word I'm looking for? Um, it's a very blue collar beach town, but it's nice. I like it. It's just laid back. Yeah, I used to watch football a long time ago, but I'm not. I just to me it was more like something you do with friends. But none of my friends watch football, so if I'm not, it's just not fun to watch by myself. Yeah, Hot Springs is probably my favorite town that I've been to in the state. OG Lock Baby. That is interesting comment because one of my next videos is going to be um, the geography of Rockstar Games. I'm kind of curious to see how people will take to that video. Um, but yeah, I'll be talking about not just Red Dead Redemption, but also the GTA games, especially 4 with that map of New York and 5 with the map of California. Yeah, I would love to visit any of the territories. The ones in the Pacific are it's just an effort to get there. It's a big effort to get there. I'm not sure what all you can do on Guam. I know it's a popular spot for Japanese tourists to go to, so I'm sure there's beaches and stuff there, although I'm not sure what all you could do. Yes, I have been to Madison, Wisconsin. Nice place. It's a one of the nicer cities in that size range in the U.S. It's growing a lot of high tech stuff. I mean, I've mentioned this a bunch in the videos. It's a state capital and a college town, and those places that tend to be both of those are generally doing better economically than places that are not. I've never been to San Diego, Texas. Maybe I have. Maybe I've driven through it. Multi War and Peace. I would really like to do canoeing backcountry stuff in Alaska. Um, that's probably the top nature type thing I'd like to see. And in terms of cities, it'd be somewhere not in the U.S. I mean, I don't know. I like to see everything pretty much, but I would like to see some of the backcountry of Alaska probably more than most. Zach, Albany has a really weird skyline. They have those like buildings. It's like identical. There's another one and another one. It looks really weird. But overall, I think it's all right. It's not one of my favorite cities, but um, I think people that live there really hate it. I get a lot of hate from people that live there, but I thought it's okay. I have not been to Bemidji, Minnesota. I would like to go up there because I would like to go canoeing northern Minnesota as well. Outer Galaxy, yeah, the Arkansas side of the Mississippi River in Tennessee, sorry, of Memphis, is much less populated. It does flood a lot, but it's also because um, places that where Tennessee is on a state line with another state, most of the people are going to be on the Tennessee side because there's no income tax. Arkansas is actually a pretty high tax state, so there aren't going to be as many folks on the Arkansas side. But yeah, it also does flood, but the whole area, Memphis floods too. I have not written any books. I don't plan on it either. Cal, I will be in San Francisco. I'm not sure exactly what I'll be doing. What I'll probably end up doing is whenever I go there, I'll park my car in the Sunset District, which is it's in the western part of the city where it's more residential. You can find a spot to park there and just take the bus around town. And at some point, I'll probably be at the market at the piers, and then start walking west from there, going through Little Italy and Chinatown, and just kind of walk across the city. The most boring highway, uh, I don't know. Driving east-west across Kansas is pretty rough. Um, Now, strangely enough, being from California, I've never driven I-5 from LA to the Bay Area just because I lived in the middle of the two and never had to go that way. But that looks like a horrifyingly bad drive. Um, it looks terrible. But I-81 through Virginia is it's probably my least favorite drive. It's not boring, but it's just I hate that drive so much. Um, as far as a travel book or a memoir, I like a Desert Solitaire by Edward Abbey. But most what I read is not. I don't read a lot of travel writing stuff. San Jose, it's affordable if you have a job that can pay for it. But the jobs there do pay pretty well. Um, but yeah, I think San Jose is the most expensive city. I think it's more expensive than San Francisco or Honolulu. The most interesting highways to drive. I really like. I think it's State Highway 12 across Utah. It goes through Zion and Bryce Canyon and Capitol Reef National Parks. It's really nice drive. Um, the Big Sur Highway 1 through California is really nice. The one across, I don't know the number, but it went across Nebraska like this, not the interstate, but kind of up here. It was really nice drive too. Beth, no, I have not been to Mackinac Island. My friends go there and they're always talking about it, and I didn't go there, haven't been there, and it didn't mention it on in the video about Michigan. Charles, I like Chicago a lot. I'll be there. Not sure when, springtime sometime. So I'll be doing a lot up there, and maybe doing a collaborative video with a couple of Chicago people, Chicago YouTubers. And Interstate 70 in Colorado is great. If you drive I-70 across Colorado, right about here, there's a pass. It's like 12,000 feet. So it's the highest point along any U.S. interstate. So if you want to see some high elevations without having to get out and hike, you can just drive I-70 across Colorado. Um, Russ, that's a good question. I'm not really sure what technology would impact the future the most. Um, I mean, I think again, self-driving cars are going to change a lot who can travel where. And I also think satellite phones. I mean, a lot of folks are able to get to places they really shouldn't be, let's be honest, because they have a satellite phone they can call um, and always have reception. But that's been out for a while. I'm surprised it hasn't been a bigger problem with people getting way lost with satellite phones. But yeah, I don't know, honestly. Um, Luis, I've been to several reservations. I was just at the Pine Ridge in South Dakota. That's pretty pretty depressing place, actually. The hottest temperature I've ever felt, I think, was like 118, something like that. It was in the desert of California. I can't remember. It was less than 120. I've not been somewhere over 120 though. David, the road to Key West is great. I think it's a nice drive. You kind of just kind of go like this, and makes for a kind of a cool dash cam video. I saw this recently. They took the older bridge and it's now pedestrian and bikes only. So that's kind of cool. But yeah, it's a nice drive. Of course, if you're trying to evacuate, I mean, it's just one little 2-lane highway that is all that goes to there. Yeah, Kylie. I mean, Tesla, I think, is they've said their cars can self-drive, but they can't. Um, I think they're. I don't see how they're able to get away with some of the stuff they've been saying. The Cadillac one actually looks like it's pretty good. The Cadillac self-driving ones. Do I recommend Furnace Creek in July? No, definitely not. Uh, Sea Hamp, yeah, I definitely listen to music on my trips. That's a huge part of what my road trips are. Um, but my car is older. I don't have doesn't have a touch screen. That doesn't have USB import or USB port or I can't even plug in like a old school iPod or anything. So it just has a radio and CDs. Um, but yeah, music's a big part of my road trips. Snoopy, my least favorite place that I've visited. You know, I don't know. I've said this before in videos. I don't like Orlando. Um, if I was into theme parks and stuff, I'm sure I would like it more if we had kids. But as someone without kids and not into theme parks, Orlando is bad. Yeah, I do a lot of hiking and bike backpacking. Um, I would walk everywhere if I could. Time is about the biggest limit, but yeah, I do a lot of hiking, lot of foot, a lot of stuff on foot. Anything worth visiting between Chattanooga and Texas? No, nothing at all. Yeah, it depends on which way you're going. Memphis is great to visit. We were just talking about Hot Springs, Arkansas, nice town. State parks in Arkansas. But if you like barbecue, live music, I mean, Memphis is about as good as it gets. No, I don't do Cracker Barrel or that kind of. I mean, we only ever do local stuff, and it may be a drive-through if we're in a hurry. But we almost, if we're going to go sit down somewhere, it's not going to be a chain. Occasionally a Waffle House, but usually on road trips, not. Yes, I am following the progress of the James Webb Telescope. I think it's really cool. Emil, I will be in Phoenix next week, or I guess this week. In a few days, I'll be there. So, yeah, I will be there. I'm not sure what I'm doing, but I will be there doing something. Yeah, I don't do trains. I have nothing against trains, but I just prefer driving. J Falk, I think Delaware is definitely a northern state. It's kind of funny when you'll hear people say that it's southern. I mean, I think that's kind of funny, really. I mean, Maryland can maybe get away with calling itself southern. I wouldn't call it that, but Delaware, no, it's definitely a. It's, I mean, it's mid Atlantic, but I would say it's definitely northern more than southern. Is Knoxville underrated? I'm not a huge fan of Knoxville. Most people in Chattanooga prefer here to Knoxville. Um, for me, the one of the problems is that it's right at the intersection of two major interstates, I-75 and I-40. So two of the busiest interstates in the country, and there's always congestion there. So it's just a lot of traffic, a lot of transit, and it's also the gateway to the busiest national park in the country. So it always just seems like it's busier and more congested than it really needs to be. Ryan, Northern California, I'll be there. I'll spend a decent amount of time there on this trip. Um, yeah, I mean, I like it. It's once you get north of Sacramento, it's much smaller towns. Um, the beach areas are more rocky and like more picturesque, not so much sit out on the beach and get a tan. But yeah, I mean, I love it up there. I'd much rather live up there than Southern California. I often do bring a dog. I will have our dog with us on this trip, um, but it just depends. Yeah, I think why Maryland sometimes says it can be southern because the Panhandle is very much like West Virginia, which is kind of southern, and then the eastern shore of the state, this area over here is kind of southern, but um, most of the state is again is just urban and suburban. So it's I think it's more influenced by the Northeast, but I can there are some Maryland folks that are hardcore about it being southern, but yeah, whatever. I will road trip a little bit in Oman. I'm not sure exactly how we're going to do it, but everything I've read is that renting a car is really easy. The roads are in good condition. Everything's in English, so I think that shouldn't be an issue. Elliot, I'll be honest, I do not know Euclidean zoning versus form-based zoning. I don't know what that is. That sounds very urban planning. Yeah, I don't know. I obviously the zoning is a huge part of what makes a city or what makes it good or bad. But as far as those differences, I don't know. Bill, I mean, I've only been to New England once. It was last year, but I mean, I mean, we really just had like a love at first sight with Maine. We really just loved it. I mean, we loved the whole time up there, but Maine really stood out to us as a spot that we loved. Daniel, seconding the yeah, you. This is all that I do is YouTube. I'm mainly a house husband, really. So my wife is employed, and because we don't have kids, and we live pretty modestly. We just have a normal house, normal cars, kind of stuff. But so travel is kind of where we splurge, So no, I don't have any real job, just this and being the house husband. Cat Lily, I like both mountains and coast. I think it's, why I like the West Coast because you have both. And same with like the Carolinas, you have mountains and beach. So I like the having both, but that's tough. I mean, if to live somewhere near a coast, you would have much more moderate temperatures. Wouldn't have, the extreme hot or extreme cold as much as you would have in interior areas. But I think I would overall take mountains if I, you know, put my pen right here. So that's I do like the coast, but I would take mountains if I absolutely had to do one or the other. Yeah, I feel like I need to get like the Easy Pass equivalent to all the states, like the Sun Pass in Florida or whatever it is. I feel like I need to have all those and like all the parking meter apps on my phone. Every time you go to a new town, you have to download their stupid parking meter app, and I don't have like 50 of them on my phone. Big Bobido. It took me a while to realize this. I was posting videos before I even realized this because I would say I like this food and that food and that food, and it wasn't until after I realized that they're all kind of the same thing. So whether it be like um, a Rochester garbage plate or Cincinnati type chili or Waffle House hash browns or whatever it is, the most recent one I talked about was the horseshoe sandwich in Central Illinois. So it's just some type of starch, a bread, fries, poutines, fries, whatever it is, starch, meat, cheese, and stuff on tops, whatever that you call. Um, my favorite genre of food, I would say, is like Mexican or Tex-Mex. Uh, Charles, the best city in the U.S. I mean, whenever it comes to like best stuff, I tend to always default to people's opinions are going to be different. So for some people, New York might be the greatest place ever. For some, it might be the worst place ever. So, um, I mean, I think Chicago is a good all around if you can put up with the winters. Um, but I mean, I like almost all the cities. The ones it's just more like the four I don't like, but all the other ones I think are pretty nice. Rocker, the fastest speed limits. Um, Texas has one road that's 85, but I think Utah has the highest where it's 80 for a lot of it. Some of the western states have a stretch where it's 80 miles an hour, and most of the western states have 75. Most of the eastern states are 70. Um, but there's just that one. There's like one little tiny road here. It's 85, and it's kind of a. I'm not sure why they even built that road, but it doesn't get used that much. I mean, San Francisco, I love it. I mean, I wouldn't want to live there, but I mean, because it's the only place like that in the U.S. If that's what you want, there's no other place to get it. So, I think that's why it's so expensive to live there. It's a small piece of land with 850,000 people, but I mean, there might be 5 million people that want to live there. I mean, it's not a lot compared to the rest of the U.S., but 5 million wanting to live there, 800,000 can fit there. So it's going to be really expensive. Um, but it would drive a lot of folks crazy. So it just depends on what your preferences are. Bryce, I like Salt Lake City a lot. I put it in a video as my favorite state capital city. It's not a lot to complain about there. It's just real nice. The city itself is not that big. A lot of folks are kind of surprised that it's only 200,000 people, but there's 2 million in that whole metro area. Sauce, I like both Dakotas. I'd probably say I like North a little bit more because we just love Theodore Roosevelt National Park. We get to spend days there and just it's so peaceful and there's nobody around. It's real nice. But I do like the Black Hills and the Badlands as well. Taco Cabana. I don't. There's so many little taco chain type places. I can't remember which one was which. There's like Taco Ray, Taco John's. Yeah, I don't remember all of them, but probably not though. I probably have not eaten at that one. I would like to do a road trip through Mexico, but yeah, it hasn't happened. But that's something I would definitely like to do. Yes, Kiwi. I did study geography in college, and I did natural hazards planning um, before I was doing stuff like this. Oh yeah, Del Taco. There's another one too. There's so many of those. They're all. I don't think they're really that good. New York Rush. I mean, you're living in it if you're living in New York. So I mean, you go from there's almost no break between Portland, Maine, and Petersburg, Virginia. So I mean, there's a little bit of space between Portland and the New Hampshire coast, but in Boston, it's just all built up. There's a little bit of space in northeastern Connecticut, but not really, not much. All built up all the way down here. A little bit of space between DC and Richmond, but not that much. And then Petersburg. So that's it right there. That's the longest stretch of contiguous urban um, buildup. Somebody in Buffalo watching football. Are they any good this year? Yeah, Jackson, Mississippi is pretty rough. I'll be there tomorrow. Yeah, the place is pretty rough. Spencer, I don't know how I'd actually do an Alaska trip. Um, you need to be in a little bush plane for a lot of it. So a lot of logistics, a lot of complicated logistics with visiting national parks in Alaska. But you'll probably have to charter some planes. Ronald, it's not so much that we hate Chattanooga. It's just we've been here long enough to where it's time to move on somewhere else. I mean, I like to see different places, different things. Tyson, I had been to a couple of Predators games. Um, yeah, I like seeing hockey live. It's if you haven't seen it live, it's really cool. The way it sounds, the way the skates on the ice are, and it's really cold in there, of course. So and it's a good place. And Nashville is a good place to see a game because the arena is right across the street from the main nightlife and bar area for downtown. So the game's over, people just go across the street to the bars. Of course, one thing about Buffalo football fans is that people in Buffalo will like as a greeting to each other, we'll say "Go Bills," like, "Hey, what's up?" "Go Bills." That's like instead of saying hello. That's just kind of a strange. I don't know of anywhere else that does that as a greeting. I went to Cal State Northridge for undergrad and South Carolina for graduate school. All right, guys, I'm pretty much caught up here, so I'm just going to answer a few more, then we'll call it a stream. Um, let's see. I've been through Sauce. I've been through a lot of Michigan. This most recent time, I was pretty much just in the Detroit area, but I mean, we go all throughout the Lower Peninsula. I've not been to the Sioux area up here in a long time, but came down the west coast. I don't know what they call it there. The west coast of Michigan, um, Sleeping Bear Dunes, Holland, Grand Haven. Um, I like that. Um, this part of the state is the part that I'm the least familiar with. I'm not really sure. Sheboygan, Charlevoix. I don't know. That part of the state I'm just not very familiar with. I did not get to. No. I'm sorry. I did get to Brunswick and Bath, Maine. We stopped there between Portland and Bahaba. I do have a video coming up on Memphis. I was actually going to already have it up. Um, it's going to be. I'm going to start doing a few videos where it's on site while I'm there talking to people that are there. It was supposed to be Memphis. It didn't end up happening, but it is coming up. Yeah, I will do a March Madness equivalent. I mentioned at the beginning of the stream, I will not be doing that this year because I can't actually call it March Madness. I mean, nobody has said don't do that, but I'm not trying to poke the wasp's nest either. So I will do something a tournament oriented thing. It's will be very similar. It'll be done better, but it just will not be in March. I am 44 years old. Yeah, the March Madness. That's kind of funny. I like that. All right, so that's going to be it. I'm going to shut this thing down. I really do appreciate it, guys, for joining me here. These streams do tend to go on for a while. I like doing these streams. Somebody had asked a while back if I like doing these. I think they're fun. But yeah, I do tend to go on for a while longer than most people do streams. But yeah, I definitely do appreciate it, all the support. And like I said, I'll be leaving tomorrow on a road trip, so the videos might be kind of weird for the next couple of weeks. And then, I'll have some stuff about the places I'm going to be at. And if you haven't checked out my Instagram page, I'm going to put the photos from there. They're not pictures of me doing stupid stuff. It's just pictures of the places themselves. But yeah, that's about it. So um, all right, guys. So yeah, I look forward to seeing some of these videos coming up, and hope to see you guys next time I do one of these. Try to do one maybe once a month or so. But yeah, if you want to buy a pin for this map, and I'll do another update on this thing pretty soon. But there's the descriptions in this video, and yeah. So again, thanks a lot, guys, and I will see you next time I see you. Good night.